Welcome to the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small business. I'm Brian Rump from Profit Coach.
And I'm Matt Garrity of Manji Digital.
And before we get started, head over to kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca/checklist. Download Matt and Brian's marketing checklist for Kawartha small businesses. We are recording today from Thrive Podcast Studio at Thrive Co-working Community in 18 Kent Street West in downtown Lindsay. And we have a coming up on Halloween themed episode today. We're going to be talking about zombie businesses. So zombie businesses was something I heard, and Matt was like, we need to do this at Halloween. So Matt, do you remember that conversation we had when you were like, let's do this episode at Halloween?
Absolutely not. Of course not. I feel like we've done year-end, holiday, New Year themed episodes. I don't think we've done any other holiday themed episodes, so it's super exciting that we're having a thriving holiday themed podcast for the most important, biggest fake holiday of all time. I feel like Halloween's gotten more popular over the last couple of years, and people are getting like a little bit too possessive about it and obsessed with it, and it's very weird. Not to take this in a completely different direction, but
that's fascinating. I think it probably depends on where you are in life at certain times. I think I've known people who are like obsessed with Halloween always. I remember as a kid going through a few years where like we really had like Halloween decorations and stuff, and then we just stopped doing it. So I don't know. I think some people love it. It's fun. I think there's access to more stuff and sort of the requisite garbage that you like put around your house for Halloween. Yeah. So
I think it got too big a couple years ago when I started to see Halloween cards and greeting cards at stores. And I feel like there's like a motion or a conversation around getting to have Halloween on the last like Friday or Saturday night of the month. And I'm just, what is the point of that?
Yeah.
What other holiday do we do that with? Like, why? It's just, all holidays are actually ridiculous if you actually think about them.
Yeah.
They're all for marketing. They're all content driven.
Yeah, marketing, content, Halloween candy, like all of that stuff. I think it's fun. I don't know. I think, the moving it around, not to get too far off topic, is fascinating because some towns do it different. It's a good example of like sort of community and community pressure. Mm-hmm. You know, people who don't have kids sometimes like, I don't really care.
Right.
And it's like a fun thing. But then, sometimes when you do those things, the kids or certain families go like hunting for candy, which can become expensive. Like I used to live in Fenelon on like the widest, straightest street. So like we would get like 400 kids. Nice. Not 400, that's an exaggeration. It was actually like always over 200, like low 200s, which is crazy. Like some people are like, oh, we get no kids or like 10 kids, but they would like come from everywhere. So if, Fenelon did it on Saturday night and someone else did it on Sunday, like people would go out twice. Right? Oh, yeah. So it becomes a bit of a thing. And like, I don't know. I think it depends, I think, on the community sometimes or like where people go. And it can be very sort of isolated.
Sure.
Like, but it is fascinating, right? And like why people go out.
Oh, yeah.
What they're doing. Like,
intentions.
Sometimes it's like little kids and they just want to have fun, and then others are like, I want all the candy.
Yeah.
But I also think kids these days don't want candy as much like as when I was a kid, maybe. Like some do, but like I think they have access to candy more.
That's true.
Around, right? Or like even the Halloween bite-sized things, they didn't seem to be available year round. When I was a kid, they were like, oh, they came out for Halloween.
Yeah.
Like now,
you can get them year round, right?
You can buy them like every week, right? Like, anyway, fascinating about businesses, but we are talking about zombies and specifically zombie businesses. So what do you think a zombie business is?
I want to say a zombie business is a business that is not in control of what they are doing. they're not able to manage or pivot or head towards a goal, or try not to say the M word. But we'll get to that in a minute. But I just think it's a business that has no control or unable to manage what they're doing.
Yeah, so you're close in the context of how I'm going to talk about it. I think there are...
By the definition of zombie businesses.
Yeah. So zombie business is a business that is undead. So it's not dead yet, but it's not alive. So you're right, they don't have, control over things. They're kind of stuck in zombie mode. Where I specifically heard this from, I believe, was Scott Terrio, who is somebody I follow on Twitter, who's part of the Hoyes Michaelos sort of debt and insolvency company. So they work with consumer proposals and bankruptcies.
Oh.
So specifically, they follow a lot of trends. He'll post about, talking to a lot of business owners lately and like, here's the issues that everyone's facing. And especially over sort of the pandemic, and we knew this was happening, businesses deferred, submitting HST. They deferred having to submit payroll. They took out the CEBA loans, which everyone got, and they just borrow some money. And now CRA is calling people. Mm-hmm. They're collecting on these things. CEBA loans are coming up due. Mm-hmm. So there's all of these, things that are happening, and people don't have the money to put them back in. So they're in a hole. Mm-hmm. And I watched zombie businesses my whole career working in banking, where people get behind on something and they never get ahead. So they're keeping the lights on, but they're not growing. They're not making money. They're not really doing anything to sort of snap out of it. So they're like a zombie. So they're walking around, they're existing, they're not quite dead yet. They haven't closed the doors, but they're not living and thriving and being profitable.
Yeah, not keeping the lights on upstairs is a good one. I think an inability to grow the business, or maybe know how to grow the business, or an inability to listen to what the market and your customers are wanting. That's how you probably become a zombie business.
Yeah, I think there's lots of ways of how you get there, but you're not listening. You're not. I think I've been thinking about this lately. I think people make a lot of business decisions based on their kind of ego, but also on what their dream of what their business would be. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about this specific to, and you see it all the time, websites. Mm-hmm. And I was like this too. It's like, I want to have a business someday. Wouldn't it be cool to have a website that does this? Or wouldn't it be cool to have social media that's like this? But that might not fit your brand, might not be what you need, but you want to have it. Mm-hmm. And businesses do that too, where sometimes it's like, oh, I want to rent this cool store space because wouldn't that be awesome? But it doesn't fit where you are. And then maybe you're paying too much rent, so you can't afford marketing to get enough people there. So you're like right away in the zombie trap, right away, and you never get out of it. Or people are like, oh, I just want to do this, but like your customer doesn't want that, or they don't know that exists, or they're not enough people know about it who are willing to pay the right price. So you're pricing it too low and you can't snap out of it. So boom, zombie business.
It's interesting. The way you described it made perfect sense. And there's so many businesses that start as a zombie business. I would have thought that you were a business, you either are trying to grow or eventually you kind of hit a roadblock and become that zombie business. But it is true the way you describe it. Like, you're definitely some businesses are starting off as zombie business, which is frightening.
It's so frightening, and that's Halloween themed and like a very real type of thing. Like, I've seen it lots of times where people are doomed before they even start because they do things. I think, another thing I've been thinking about recently, and got some validation on this with some discussions, is people under-investing in certain things. So like you see it in marketing. It's like, oh, I have $300 a month, Matt. Yeah. Can you make all my dreams come true? And Matt could do maybe one thing for $300 a month, but you can't do the 8 things that you actually need to get the success that you want. So you think you're spending on marketing, but you're not spending on either the right marketing or investing enough in it to get any kind of traction or results that you need to be a living business.
Yeah, that's the challenging part, and I'm glad you said it 9 minutes in and not me, the M word, marketing.
Yeah.
Because I think that's, of course, a huge reason why you become a zombie business. You open my eyes a little bit to people that are starting zombie businesses, which was interesting. But I have these conversations all the time where it's not really about, okay, I know I need marketing. What is it going to take for me to get my goals? I would love if I had a conversation with someone like that. I would love if that's how the conversation started. The conversation's it's different right now than it used to be years ago with me. And the conversation is more like, okay, I'm open to investing money. I only have so much, and here's what we're going to do for a substantial investment, which is good. And that's what it wasn't like that a year ago.
Yeah.
And I've had to work hard to get to that point. But years ago, like the zombie businesses would just be like, I've got $100 a month on marketing. I want you to do this and this. Can you make it happen? And I'm like, you don't need this and that. You need X, Y, Z instead, and not for $100.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are in trouble. I appreciate now the people that are coming to me, and I have it happen a lot lately where people say, I don't want to pick on social media, but I had a mortgage broker that's like, I need social media. And I was like, why? And I think she was rattled by my question because I didn't say it in an unfriendly way, but it was clearly like a inquisitive type of way. And she's like, well, that's where I think I need to be. And I'm like, well, if you're a mortgage broker, you need to be doing these things, and here's why. And like, that was interesting. And that's someone that was open to it, and I wanted to work with. And then you do have the other people, the zombie businesses, again, that aren't listening to what their customers or the market is doing, where I present in some cases where social media makes a ton of sense, and it usually does, but I present some sort of social media and they're like, I don't know about this. Like, I'm not on Facebook, so I don't think that we should do it. In my head, when I hear that, I'm immediately checked out of that kind of conversation. And maybe that's a fault of mine. But in my mind, like you said, it's people that are like, well, this is how I operate, so everyone else operates the same exact way as me.
Yeah, and I think that's neat. Again, one maturity thing in business is really understanding how to make it about your customer. Find out who they are, where they are, what they need, not necessarily just what you want to give to them. And that's similar. It's like, well, I do this. And sometimes I ask, like, would you buy what you're selling? And some of them wouldn't. So it's like, so you're not your target, right? Yeah. So like, you need to figure out, where are those people hanging out? What do they want? I know we talk about like SEO, what are people actually searching versus what you want to give. Mm-hmm. So I know just in my own content and, when I first started my business, I thought, I'm going to write all these cool things and they're going to be kind of, funny critiques and clever. And I think that stuff's awesome, but it doesn't actually feed my business, and people that I can help the most aren't actually even reading it. Mm-hmm. So, I do some of those things, or I have, and you get lots of people like me are like, oh, this is awesome and hilarious, and thank you so much for writing this, but they don't give me money. Mm-hmm. So like, I have to, as a business, go figure out who is going to give me money and create something that gets their attention. And that's what most people, I don't think, have the self-awareness to do. Mm-hmm. But it's one of the ways we're kind of bridging into, there's different kinds of zombies in zombie businesses, and there's some different cures to like get out of that zombie mode. So you either have to like die as a business and close up and just stop it now, or you need to get back to being alive. And marketing is one of those ways to like get back to being alive or to not be in that zombie mode.
Yeah, so if I'm thinking about it my two ways, if I want to tie it together with actual zombie references, so I'm thinking of zombie businesses as people that are just kind of walking through their business. There's no goal, there's no direction. And then you've got the other business that's just basically not listening to the market and their customer. So there's the zombie that is directionless with no goals. That's the old school zombie that we're used to, like the old like Night of the Living Dead, walking really slow. I forget his first name, but Romero, like that guy. Versus the new zombie, like the 21 Days Later. Danny Boyle.
I don't watch any of these zombie movies.
So like they changed the zombie genre like I don't know, probably 25 years ago now. I might be dating myself. Old school zombies just kind of like dragged their feet, arms out, kind of like Frankenstein. Didn't do much. They were directionless. They're not really heading towards a goal. There's a goal. They don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And the new zombies, they're head down. They're running at people.
Yeah.
So that movie scared everyone to death because it was just frightening. Like, oh, the old school zombies that just walk around aimlessly. These new zombies, like, they know where they're going. But they're head down. They're not listening to the market. They're not listening to their customer. They're just head down trying to cause chaos.
Yeah, that's a really good...
Nailed it.
I like this. Yeah,
I saw your face when I started this, and you're like, where are you going? What are you doing? And I saw your eyes light up at the end, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, I think it's really good because that's a good way to do that. It's like, and those people are the ones where they're hustling, they're working, but they won't listen to anyone.
Yes.
And then they're just always surprised that at the end of the day they're not making money or they're losing money. I think both of them are both in that zone of not really dead and thriving, and they both need some medicine to figure out what they're going to do. I think when we started this conversation I was thinking about zombie businesses in terms of like some money traps. So like you cash is tight, so you don't remit your HST. You still owe it. I hear people sometimes complain about owing payroll deductions, and it's like, you are a deemed trust for the government, and you're responsible for that. You've like withheld that from the pay of your employees. So if you don't have that cash to remit, like that's a big warning sign for your business of like, oh, I don't have money to pay, my employees' CPP deductions that like I took from their paycheck. And it's hard to snap out of that. Or you borrowed like, the CEBA came up and everyone was like, oh, sure, I'll take that big loan from the government and I'll worry about paying it back later. Well, then later comes and you don't have that money, or you've dipped into, debt to basically cover losses versus invest in something that's going to make you more money. So now you're like, your business hasn't changed. You just now owe, here's $1,000 a month debt payment, right? So you end up walking like that zombie where you're always behind with the government. And with all of these things, they don't just magically fix themselves, right? You're wandering around, whether you're the fast moving zombie hustling, chasing people, or you're sort of droning on. You're still not any closer to being alive and thriving.
The opposite of a zombie business, I tell you a story about a construction company that I met with last night, and just to paint a bit of a picture for you. I've never met these guys. They came in, they were quiet, not in any way, but like they'd clearly been working all day. They had hoodies on, their work boots, they're kind of dirty, hands are dirty, really quiet, really nice, engaging guys. Looked you in the eye, nodded. They knew what you were talking about. They self-proclaimed like they don't use social media. They don't like social media. They've got a bit of a website that I truly believe in my heart that they've never seen. And they said that, and they actually don't want to see it.
Yeah.
And they're getting older. They're not that old, but these guys are getting older. They don't want to do a lot of what they call in that industry like hardscaping, which is like brickwork and heavy loads and stuff, because like it beats them up. Yeah. They want to do excavation. They want to do septic installs. They want to do shoreline stuff in the winter. And they recognize like, okay, if we want to get to that point where we're not getting these calls to like rake my granny's leaves and do her driveway or whatever. We need to be online. And these guys like, we're not online. I don't like it. I don't want to use it, but you're the expert and you need to take us there. And it was so refreshing. It was so exciting. Honestly, I could perceive them as soon as I walked out there, and I talked to them on the phone and I was like, this isn't going to go the way I wanted it. But like through they were so engaging, it was so great. Like that was the opposite of a zombie business, to just like put the flip on it. It's just talking to people that like, they don't act a certain way with their business, but they know they're unique.
Yeah.
And that like there are people online and there are people looking digitally for this stuff. And,
or they're spotting the writing on the wall and they see like we could become that.
Sure.
And I think, this is also what's fascinating to me is people who want to change, or it's like, well, I don't want to be doing this type of work, but that's who phones. And that's always a marketing thing. It's like you're making people guess what you do, and then you just say yes. So someone like hunts you down. It's like, do you do this? And I'm like, well, I guess so, but I hate doing it because I have no other work. It's like, well, you could use marketing to be known for what you actually do and want to do. Oh, yeah. And you can get the best customers who give you the best type of work, but you need like help doing that. So, in their case, I don't know where they're coming from, but that could be just a way to be like, okay, we need to make this change so that this doesn't happen.
And it could have been because this was 2 years ago, someone introduced them to me and they're like, oh yeah, we got to call this guy. And then someone else introduced me to them like a month ago. And they're like, oh, that's kind of a sign. We really got to talk to this guy. And you go on their website and like they said they weren't really involved. The person that they used to work with for radio did their website because there was no call to action on the radio commercial. It was like, hey, check out this construction company. Guess where to find them. So like they had to put up a website. But like you talk to them and you get a completely different picture of what they want than what their website says, right? Yeah. And it was very interesting. And I think just with like a little bit of messaging, we'll be able to change what type of projects they're getting. And I told them, and I warned them already, like we're not working together, but like you're going to continue to get those referral word of mouth projects that you don't want. And then there's going to be a time where it's going to be quiet because like that plateau, like that pendulum is going to switch. And then you're slowly going to start getting calls again. There might not be as many calls as you used to get, but the calls are going to be the ones that you actually want, the good jobs that you want. And it was just like, it was a great conversation. I loved it. Anyways.
Yeah, and it's those major changes. So this is a good segue into the other quote that I just love saying of like, how do we fix this? Right? So first of all, you don't want to become that zombie business, which is all the things we talk about every episode, like things to avoid, getting some help. But if you're in that trap, you have to get out of it somehow. And it's not easy. So like, I don't know all the zombie movies and if there's cures sometimes or not cures.
Sometimes an antidote,
sometimes you need that, someone's got to give you a shot of medicine and it's going to be very painful, right? Or someone's going to, hit you across the face with a board with a nail in it or something and, end it. But, we want to help get you out of it. So, and you're in it, you're in these cycles. So I always think of Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen talking about, the Game of Thrones. It's like a wheel, all the families are spokes on a wheel.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want to stop the wheel. I want to break the wheel.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to break a wheel, you need force. So that cycle's going, you're running, like you need some sort of force. And that is a hard change in action that frankly I can help with, you can help with. Oftentimes it's marketing, or it starts with marketing, or it starts with somewhere. And then the next step is marketing, because maybe you don't even know where you're going, what you're doing. So maybe that's let's sit down, talk about what is it you even want and what are you doing and what are the changes we need to make. And we start kind of rebuilding that. And that could be like, okay, let's get some core messaging done. Let's get you, a better website. Let's start building the SEO machine so that you are, making that change that you need to do to start thriving.
Yeah, stop fighting the wheel.
Yeah.
Get on it and try to fix it.
Like and it takes a force. Like it's not easy. Like I think what I really want to get across in this is that it's force. It's not that hard. There's guides that can help you, but it's not going to fix itself. And it's not going to hiring your nephew to do Facebook is not magically going to suddenly give you what you need to actually make that change.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at businesses, and my mindset on this isn't necessarily people starting out. I'm thinking specifically of, I have a customer someone I worked with for a few years. When they came to me, they owed the government like almost $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, where's that money coming from? Like, if you're on a course where you can't pay your payroll deductions and you're losing money every month, say you're losing $1,000 a month, but you owe 100, like you gotta not only stop losing $1,000 a month, but you also have to start earning 5,000 a month or 10,000 to get out of the hole.
Yeah.
Right. So you need a major shock.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's some different ways of trying to do that. But if you don't fix it, then you're just delaying the inevitable.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to Janet DeBello, friend of the show, friend of Thrive, supporter of mine, yesterday. And she was talking about
we'll see by the time this airs, maybe counselor.
I didn't know if we wanted to say that or not.
Well, we'll see. Yeah.
And she was talking about her real estate business, and her being a realtor is rather new, probably less than a year old, definitely less than 2, but probably close to less than a year.
Oh, I think less than a year. Yeah.
And she was asking, and we're having the conversation, a group of us, about when does she start not investing money, but when does she start hiring the experts for bookkeeping and marketing and an assistant and all these types of things. And it's scary, and there's risk, and we don't want to spend money up front because we're new. And I'm not big on regrets, which is also a cliche. And I don't mean it that way, because I do feel these little problems. You're laughing at me, but
no, I'm laughing because there's a song lyric in my head that I can't say.
But these things that we've learned along the way, they've all come from somewhere. So these bad situations and bad employers and all these things, that all sucked at the time. I don't wish they didn't happen, because I think I'm better for it now because I've learned stuff from it.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not.
It's like me. I think of some of my greatest failures.
Yeah.
And if I could have avoided them, but I'm probably way better having gone through them, because now I have a story to tell.
Yes.
And now I can make somebody do something.
Yeah.
Based on it. But yeah, go ahead.
The thing I think about is do I wish I started my businesses earlier? Yes, but I don't know if it would have been successful or on a path to success because of those learnings. The one thing I do wish I did from the beginning was I wish that I didn't hack it, and I wish that I had invested in who's and experts earlier on. And it wasn't until 2 years into it, when you introduced me to the Dan Sullivan book, Who Not How, which I pulled off my shelf an hour ago for a workshop I'm doing this afternoon. I wish I had understood that concept earlier and spent that money there. And that's the risk, the business risk that you have to take on.
You have to take risk. And that's again the snapping out of the zombie mode. You need to someone, to smash the needle into your arm or something.
Yeah.
And you don't know if it's going to work. It's going to be painful, but there's no free lunches. Business is trading of risk. A lot of people just want, I think, stuff to happen. And when you get that mindset of oh, I'm the one taking the risk and I'm going to fail at some of them. So we try to make good decisions of who we hire, but that's also and there's sometimes reality of okay, I can't hire the best person in the world to do it because it just doesn't make sense. But
sure.
Am I hacking it? Am I hiring the person who's learning how to do it for $15 an hour? That's maybe okay for certain things, but it's figuring out, where is that person? And you talk about Who Not How. I listened to a great podcast yesterday, and somebody who is a coach in strategic coach at Dan Sullivan's network, knows this stuff more than anyone, talked exactly about, they first got an assistant and they shared a person with 3 people. So, and then what happened was one of those people went and hired their own and was like, can you take on, my third of this person? And thinking about this is like the massive risk. Can I afford it? Like all of these things. And what happened was she said, yeah, I'll take the leap and do it. And then she said within 2 months, she was like, okay, how fast can you be full-time own person? Because they were the right person, the right fit. They helped them grow their business. Yeah. So with everyone, and, we've talked through like, you hire a marketing person and suddenly you're not doing it anymore and the results are better. Yeah. You hire a proper bookkeeper and you can now get numbers that make sense for you to make decisions. And like, that's eye-opening. So now you can start making those decisions quicker. You can make that assistant who's going to free up your time. Yeah. So you have to do the things you need to do. So, if someone frees up your time, you got to like use it. Yeah. You can't just like go not work and be like, oh, I can't afford this. True. But like when you do those things, those are like shocks to get you out of that zombie mode. So, I talk about, you're losing money, you're a zombie, like you got to make more money to pay that back plus earn more. Like that requires a shock. There's also the people who, you're not losing money, but you're not making as much. So you need that shock of freeing up your time or bringing in a better expert. Like, sure, you get people who come to you because they're sad about their marketing or they're investing in it, but it's not working. Yeah. So like maybe they need the shock of like, okay, let's spend that same amount of money, but in a way that works better. And that's the shock to like get that growth.
Yeah. Interesting. Sorry, I didn't check out. I just, what you said, I can't say anything else to.
Yeah, I think this has worked out really well.
Way better episode than I thought it was going to be.
I knew it was going to be good because I think the concept of zombie businesses and like when, I read Scott Terrio's tweet, I was like, oh, that's so true. Like there's so many analogies. Almost every business that I come across are in that boat, right? And the only way out is a shock of some sort. And I think about it all the time because I used to think that people were like, sort of 2 clicks away or just a few little adjustments away from success or things working. And I tried coaching that way as well. Sure. So when I started coaching and working with people several years ago, I think I charged a lot less money and tried to do a lot smaller interventions. And I think now I'm like, and I've always been like the medicine that doesn't taste very good, but you need it, right? I'm like the Buckleys. It's like, you don't really want to take it, but like, you need that because you're going to have to do something that busts that cycle. And that's different for every business, but the only way out is through some sort of force. Yeah. Somehow.
That's awesome. No, it's enlightening. It's an inspirational conversation we've had too. It actually just makes me think about like zombie business marketing branding. Yeah. It's just completely off topic. But
it's like, hey, you're a zombie business, but I think next year might be a fun lead generator, right? 5 ways your business is like a zombie. Yeah. And like,
it doesn't fit my brand, but like there's like a whole brand you could create around this. It would be awesome. Just scary good marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So with that, if you think you're listening to this right now and you're like, uh-oh, I'm a zombie in my zombie business. I need some medicine to like, break this wheel and snap out of it. We would love to talk to you about that. You can catch us on social media, or you can send us an email directly to setitup@kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca.